This episode of Ghost Maps is sponsored by Podcorn. Podcorn has made it easy for the Ghost Maps team to connect with brands that complement the stories we want to tell. If you're a podcaster looking for sponsorship that fits your show, or a brand that's looking to create an authentic message that truly resonates and engages with listeners, visit podcorn.com now. This episode is supported by Nanyang Vice. Nanyang Vice is one of the fastest growing and most well-received Mandarin Horror Podcasts in Southeast Asia. It focuses on urban legends, unsettling individuals, real crimes, and more. A unique movie-like thriller, the series puts you in the shoes of its protagonist, creating a terrifying auditory experience. Nanyang Vice frequently tops Apple Podcast fiction list in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, Malaysia, and Singapore. New episodes go up every Monday and Friday. Horror and ghost lovers, don't miss it. Ghost Maps. Entry 62. Pulau Tekong, Singapore. I'm finding it difficult to focus. Nazri's gotten himself another drink and is ready to continue with his stories. He's my second interviewee for tonight and has been sharing his encounters on Pulau Tekong during the Hungry Ghost Month. But just as he ended his last story, I thought I saw an apparition. This isn't the first time I'm seeing something since my accident. I initially brushed it off. I must be more tired these days, burnt out. But this is the third time this has happened recently, so I'm not sure anymore. Still, there's nothing I can do about it. At least, not right now anyway. Whatever's going on, I'm going to need help. So, instead, I try to concentrate on the task at hand. You okay? Nazri asks me. I guess I'm not doing a very good job of hiding my own concerns. I let out the most casual chuckle I can master and tell him that I'm fine. Just a lack of sleep, I say. Nothing to worry about. I switch my recorder back on and change the subject as quickly as I can by asking him to start from where we left off. Nazri's platoon's field camp was done. Whatever he had seen while out in the jungles of Pulau Tekong had not hurt him, but it had warned him. The spirit or spirits seemed intent on targeting Nazri's buddy, Vivek. Something was going to happen to him. Nazri just wasn't sure when. After they had returned to their bunks and showered, Nazri asked Vivek if he'd seen or done anything unusual while outfield. Nothing, bro, Vivek said, in his usually relaxed tone, while polishing his boots. Vivek, Nazri explains to me, was perpetually chilled. He always went with the flow, Nazri says. He never complained and ended almost every day with a smile, no matter how exhausted he was. Which was why everyone was more than a little surprised when a few days later, Vivek began having bouts of moodiness. At first, his fellow recruits just assumed he was zoning out. He would sit on his bed for about 5 minutes every day staring out at nothing in particular. When someone would ask him what was up, he'd just answer with a non-committal grunt. Everyone else thought that Vivek's chilled vibe was finally giving way under the strains of basic military training. Everyone else except Nasri. Nasri asked Vivek a couple more times if anything had happened to him outfield. Each time, Vivek's wordless response seemed more and more hostile. Eventually, Nasri decided that, for his own safety, he should stop questioning his buddy. But still, he says, I kept my eye on him. It was only because Nasri was paying close attention to Vivek that he was able to save one of his fellow recruits' life. About a week had passed since their outfield training. After a particularly grueling day, everyone was getting some rest in their bunk and, more importantly, getting ready to book out the day after. No one, however, besides Nasri, that is, seemed to notice Vivek's particularly menacing glare. He was clearly ready to attack, Nasri tells me. He was tense, his face, it was contorted and twisted, like some kind of animal. That menacing glare wasn't specifically focused on anyone, though, which frightened Nasri even more. Without an obvious target, Nasri remained on edge. There was no telling when Vivek, or whatever had taken control of him, would strike. And then it happened. A recruit named Michael, a slightly clumsy but otherwise harmless guy, was walking past Vivek's bed when Vivek leapt out at him with a growl. Nasri quickly jumped at his buddy without thinking. If I had stopped to think for even just 1 second, he says, I would have noticed that he had a fork in his hand and he was aiming it right for Michael's eye. Nasri isn't sure if he would have reacted as quickly if he had seen his buddy wielding a weapon. He prefers not to dwell on what could have been, only that he had the fork out of Vivek's hand before he could do any harm. But the danger was far from over. Vivek's not a big guy, Nasri tells me. I should have been able to pin him down easily, but he fought me off like I was nothing. The rest of the recruits, now shaken out of their shock, came to Nasri's aid. 4 of the bigger guys, as well as Nasri, finally managed to restrain Vivek. And then 2 more guys, Zaki and Bala, stepped forward. I didn't notice them at first, Nasri says. It was only when Vivek started to calm down a little that I realized that Zaki and Bala were praying. It took them another 15 minutes before Vivek just passed out. When he eventually woke up, he had no recollection of what had happened. Just got a bad headache, bro, he said, once again back to his old, chilled out self. No one told the sergeants or warrant officers. We figured if we tried, they'd only shoot us down, Nasri says, shaking his head. After all, they didn't bother to warn anyone about being respectful to spirits when we were outfield. Now that Vivek was feeling better, Nasri asked him again about whether he had seen or done anything in the jungle. Anything that might have angered whatever was out there. I mean, there was some food, Vivek had said. I don't know if I accidentally stepped on it. Maybe, I guess. But it's not a big deal, right, bro? Nasri tells me that from that day onwards, him and the rest of the recruits were a tighter knit bunch than ever before. If any of them needed to go anywhere, at least 2 other recruits would follow them. And whenever they had to tread even near the jungle, they were always respectful. Maybe that was our sergeant's weird way of getting us to bond, Nasri says. Leaving us to fend for ourselves against those things. I tell him that if that was the plan, that's a terrible plan. He laughs, and I chuckle along with him, even as my eyes dart around this Bedok coffee shop. I don't spot any more apparitions or spirits or anything, thankfully. What I see instead is Hock Seng, my last interviewee for tonight. I exhale a sigh quietly and hope that Seng can share with me his 2 stories without any other interruptions. If you want to discover more of Southeast Asia's other side, subscribe now and follow us on social media. You can also be one of our supporters on Patreon. Look for We Are HANTU or click the links in the description. Ghost Maps is a HANTU production, created by Kyle Ong and Wayne Ray, with art direction by Jolene Lim, and recorded on Audio Technica mics.